Thank you so much for being here this evening. Did everybody find it okay? You good? For how many of you is this your first time here at JCCC? Well, we're glad to have you here. And for how many of you is this your first International Relations Council program? Great. This will not be your last IRC program, I promise you. My name is Matthew Hughes. I'm the Executive Director of the International Relations Council, and it is my sincere pleasure to welcome you this evening as we discuss the status of peace building between India and Pakistan. We are so grateful to our hosts here at Johnson County Community College. If you could please help me to thank them this evening. This program this evening is the cooperation of a number of different groups around town, especially Park University and the Center for Global Peace Journalism. Steve, are you here somewhere? There's Steve Youngblood. Steve, thank you so much. As well as our friends at the India Association of Kansas City. IAKC, where are you this evening? Thank you so much to you. It is my great pleasure now to turn it over to Dr. Tom Patterson, Director of International Education here at JCCC, who will offer his welcome as well and introduce this evening's speaker. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. I was speaking briefly with Professor Gandhi, saying, look at the turnout we've got here. And he turned to me and he said, well, the name Gandhi sometimes helps. I'll follow Matthew and thank you all for coming out this evening. We have a great presentation. My thanks to Johnson County Community College for hosting. Once again, thank you, Steve Youngblood and Park University and the International Relations Council. It was a joint effort to put this together. We have handouts for everyone here together tonight on the upcoming Greater Kansas City Peacebuilding Conference, so please pick up a flyer on your way out if you haven't got one already. It's going to be, this is our 7th annual, and this year the theme is Human Rights, the Foundation of Peace Building. And will take place October 31st at Avila University. That's on a Thursday, Friday, November 1st at Park University, and then Saturday, November 2nd right here in this auditorium. And the keynote speaker is going to be Sarah Margon, Washington Director of Human Rights Watch. Some of you may have seen her. She was here, Matthew, when was that, last year? Last October, right. And now I turn to our honored guest speaker for tonight, Professor Gandhi. He's a historian and biographer involved in efforts for trust building and reconciliation. He's the author of more than a dozen books. He's a research professor at the Center for South Asian and Middle Eastern Studies at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Professor Gandhi is the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. Through his writing, speaking, public interventions, and dialogues, he has been engaged for 60 years in efforts for reconciliation and democratic rights. Professor Gandhi is a peace builder. I encourage you to Google his blog entitled Himmat, which means courage. As he writes with courage, it is a space for what must be said. And on it, he writes that site is for those who are troubled by hate, venom, and bullying around us, or who think that humankind must come together, or being cautious about strongman rule, prefer an elected government with checks and balances, or who realize that evil descends from human folly, not from a person's label of race, faith, nationality, or another kind, or who want to be educated by nature, history, science, and the human conscience, not by anger, or ill will, and for those ready to believe that a neighbor may turn out to be more a friend than an enemy. Please join me in welcoming Professor Gandhi.
You're optimistic. Is my voice carrying through the system? Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, the Indian Association here, Kansas City. And thank you, Steve and the Park University for inviting me to this place. This is the first time I'm speaking publicly apart from my remarks at Park University yesterday and this morning. This is the first time I'm speaking in the Kansas City area. First time in this JCCC place. And the first time in this wonderful auditorium. So I feel very fortunate and I'm very happy to meet with all of you. Now I'm going to try something very different this evening. And I'm particularly nervous about the reaction of my wife who's sitting here because she doesn't like my experimentations. But now that I've mentioned her, I would like her to rise so you can all greet Usha, my wife. So I'm going to combine my understanding. It's my understanding, one person's understanding. And this is not the distilled truth. It's one person's limited understanding of the India-Pakistan situation. But I'm going to mingle that understanding with almost portions of an autobiography about myself. Because I want all of you to recognize how events have shaped my thinking. So this is how I'm going to try. So in 1947, when I was 12, and I was going to school in New Delhi, that's when India and Pakistan became independent and also when the subcontinent was divided. The school I went to was called Modern School, Modern High School. Some of you may be aware of it. And it had houses. And I belonged to a house called Akbar House. And Akbar was one of the great Mughal rulers of India. And he was born in the Muslim background. So when the partition took place, Akbar House vanished from one day to the next. That is not the only change in my school. We had a few Muslim teachers. They all disappeared from one day to the next. We had some Muslim students. They also seemed to disappear. To this day, I remember their faces, their names. One or two of them were in my class. They were a minority, but they disappeared from one day to the next. And within a few weeks, lots of new students arrived, and new teachers arrived. They came from West Pakistan into New Delhi. So Sikh students, Hindu students. So that was the direct impact of partition on my life in my school. Now, of course, 47 was marked tragically by killings. Most scholars now more or less agree on their estimate that maybe 1 million people were killed. 1 million people. And by some kind of devilish or divine parity, an equal number of Muslims and non-Muslims were killed. this is also of some interest. Of course, if you ask most people in India today, they would claim or they would think and they would state that almost all those who were killed were either Hindus or Sikhs. Similarly, if you were talking in Pakistan, many people would state or think, believe, that almost all who were killed were Muslims. But most scholars estimate that roughly same number of non-Muslims, Hindus and Sikhs combined, same number of Muslims were killed. At that time, what today is Bangladesh also was part of Pakistan. At that time, there were some killings, but nowhere near the same amount as in the Punjab part of the subcontinent. That area would witness killings in 70, 71, 72. Enormous killings that would come later. Then in 1948, within some months of India's independence, I was going to school in New Delhi. On 30th January 1948, my grandfather was assassinated in New Delhi. He was assassinated on this spot where I was frequently with him, where he used to hold these multi-faith prayer meetings. And often I saw that there was hostility against him. In his multi-faith prayer meetings, one of the earliest portions was a recitation of the short opening chapter of the Holy Quran, the Al-Fatiha. And I was often present when, sometimes, some in the large audience would object to the recitation of those lines. And my grandfather would say to the audience, do you know what this says, what the meaning is? Why are you objecting? Try and figure out the meaning or learn about it. It says some wonderful things. And he would ask everybody else, these people are unhappy, do you object? Oh no, of course not, please continue, please continue. And he would continue. Sometimes the objectors would say, no, we will not let you. And they would be quite so obviously hostile that even I was 10 years old, 11 years old. I would recognize that they were angry with him. And I would ask myself, if they were to come close to him and physically attack him, would I be able to protect my grandfather? He had no bodyguard, he didn't wear any shields, helmets. But on the fateful day, 30th January of 1948, I was taking part in a sporting event, a running event in my school, and I wasn't there at that multi-faith prayer meeting. So I was not put to the test of whether I could save him or not. 3 years later, in 1951, I have not yet mentioned that my father, Gandhi's fourth son, was a newspaper editor, a paper called the Hindustan Times. It's still there, being published in New Delhi. And we were living in an apartment in the building which contained the offices and the printing press of this newspaper at the time. So one morning, my father was at home. A journalist came up to our apartment, knocked on the door, carrying a sheet with him, and I opened the door. And I let him in so that he could meet my father. But I read the sheet of paper in his hand. It said, Liaquat Ali Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, has been shot at. MTF. I knew that MTF meant more to follow. Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan has been shot at MTF. I said, I hope what follows is the news that he's dead. I thought I had made a witty remark and I expected a smile from this journalist. He gave me a frown. and I realized I had said something stupid. And afterwards, when I reflected on this, I understood two things. One, I made that remark because I shared the popular prejudice. Liaquat Ali Khan was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and Pakistan was some kind of enemy country. And of course, if the Prime Minister of Pakistan is killed, it's a good thing. And the second reason why I made that stupid remark was, as to my understanding, that I was a boy trying to become a man, a macho man. And that understanding of what lay behind my perfectly horrible remark led to the first book that I wrote. It was called 8 Lives, a study of the Hindu-Muslim encounter, where I studied 8 prominent Muslim personalities of South Asia, including Liaquat Ali Khan. And some of these 8 were against the creation of Pakistan, some of them were for the creation of Pakistan. They were all Muslim leaders, including Jinnah, including Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, including the great poet Allama Iqbal, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who opposed partition. But that was a factor in my wanting to understand the Hindu-Muslim story. In 1957, I made my first visit to the United States. I was not quite 22. I also visited Washington, D.C. at that time. And I met Martin Luther King Jr. in 1957. This is before he became all that famous. I also met his father, Daddy King, in Atlanta, Georgia, in that summer of 1957. In 1964, I started this journal to which I think Tom has made reference, Himmat, Himmat, which means courage. And this blog that I write can be observed at himmat.net, HIMMAT.net. But then it started in 1964 as a print journal, a weekly. And it was quite an interesting and in some ways useful and perhaps effective weekly. We couldn't make it last beyond 1981. 17 years it lasted, but then glossy journals with all kinds of stories and pictures, so forth, came and killed our modest weekly. But that was also the time when my wife and I and others of us, we created this center in Western India called Asia Plateau, not far from the city of Pune, not very far from the city of Mumbai, which is a center for reflection, for dialogue, for reconciliation. And all of you who are visiting India are welcome to go and see and observe for yourself what this center does. It's very active. It also has an ecological aspect to it. In 1965 was the first India-Pakistan war after independence, although I should qualify that. In 47-48, already there was this war between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, and I will come to that, of course, before long. 65 was another India-Pakistan war, which was ultimately stopped after a few days. Why? Because both sides ran out of ammunition. And the world also intervened and the war stopped. In 1971, Pakistan split into two. And East Pakistan became Bangladesh. And what did that prove? It proved that Islam was not enough to create and maintain a nation's unity. Many in Pakistan thought that, well, Punjabis of West Pakistan are Muslims, Sindhis are Muslims, most of them, the Pashtuns are Muslims, the Balochis are Muslims, many of the Bengalis of Bangladesh, of East Bengal are Muslims. Islam will keep them all together. Well, it didn't happen. Islam was not enough for a nation to remain united. And Bangladesh was created. And of course, India intervened very much in favor of a separate. What's happening? Yeah.
I'm going to ask them. Sorry to interrupt. But we are going to pass out cards in which people can ask questions. So we'll begin passing them out there now if you have some questions. And at the end, Professor Gandhi will answer them. So take, put your questions down and then we'll have them addressed. Sorry.
So Bangladesh is created, but within a few years, the very popular leader of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, is killed and most of his family members are killed. And shortly thereafter, what happens in India? Sorry? Emergency. Yes. In June of 75, the emergency is declared in India. And Himmat plays a part in opposing it. Himmat stands for free expression, independent expression, democratic rights, human rights. And so Himmat plays its part, and that's another story. And then 1984-85, I make an extended visit to the United States. I'm a fellow at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars in Washington, D.C., and that's where I write my book, 8 Lives, A Study of the Hindu-Muslim Encounter, which has been published again and again and again and reprinted under different titles. Its latest title in India is Understanding the Muslim Mind, as if there is only one Muslim mind. But you know, authors don't have full control over the titles of their books. The publishers decide. In Pakistan, it has been translated and pirated and published, but I'm very happy it has been published. And in India, Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and others seem to be very interested in this book. It keeps getting reprinted. Then in 1989, I wrote my Patel biography. Now, be honest, guys. Don't be embarrassed. How many of you, put up your hands, have never heard of Vallabhbhai Patel? Put up your hands. You've never heard of Vallabhbhai Patel. Vallabhbhai Patel is the man who now has the world's tallest statue. Yes, the world's tallest statue in Western India is of this man, Vallabhbhai Patel, who was one of Gandhi's close associates. He was the Deputy Prime Minister of India under Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru was the Prime Minister, but Patel only survived for 3 years after independence. He was ill. He died in December of 1950. Patel was a formidable figure, an amazing figure, one of the great figures of the modern Indian story. But he had been neglected. And I felt, in the mid-80s, having written about these 8 Muslim leaders, I must write about this remarkable Hindu leader, Vallabhbhai Patel, who has been neglected. This was written 30 years ago. Since I'm not in a humble frame of mind today, let me tell you that a better book on Patel has not been written yet. And Patel is the man that today's Hindu nationalists in India claim as a great champion. Their line is, oh, Gandhi was a good man, maybe he was a great man, but he made a fundamental mistake when he encouraged the first prime ministership of India should go to Nehru and not to Patel. Gandhi's great blunder, for which India continues to pay a huge price today, which is why Narendra Modi created the world's tallest statue, Vallabhbhai Patel. Yeah. His aim is that the world, if not the world, at least India should understand that Gandhi made a mistake, that Nehru was terrible. Gandhi was good in parts, but in the most important parts, terrible too. Patel is the man. Patel is the man. And today there are many controversies about Patel, what he said, what he didn't say, what he was for, what his Kashmir policy was, what it was not. And there are furious arguments for and against Patel, and all the writers who criticize him, all the writers who praise him, quote Rajmohan Gandhi's biography of Patel. This is a fact. Now, as some of you know, when India was partitioned into Hindu majority India and Muslim majority Pakistan, there were hundreds of princely states which the British had not ruled directly, which the British had ruled indirectly through these princes, the Rajas, the Maharajas, Nawabs, Nizams. And when independence came, the question arose, where will these states go? To which country would they belong? Many joined India, some joined Pakistan. But 3 states, there was a problem. And these 3 states were Kashmir, the full name of which is Jammu and Kashmir, or J&K. Actually, it should be JKNL because there is also Ladakh. But it was one princely state ruled by a Hindu Maharaja, but there was an anomaly in a sense. Although a Hindu was the Maharaja, the great majority of the people were Muslims. There were some parts of J&K and L where there were Hindus in the majority, in Jammu. In the Ladakh area, the Buddhists were in the majority. But in the Kashmir area, the Muslims were in the majority. And overall, in the whole area, the Muslims were in the majority, but the ruler was a Hindu. There was a tiny state in Western India called Junagadh, which had the opposite situation. The ruler was a Muslim, but 88% of the population were Hindus. And there was a third state, a very large state, called Hyderabad. We are a very learned audience here. In Hyderabad, 90% were Hindus, but the ruler was the Nizam of Hyderabad, who was a Muslim. So the ruler of Junagadh said, I'm going to join Pakistan. And he signed the accession to Pakistan. The Nizam of Hyderabad said, I will remain independent. I will join neither India nor Pakistan. The ruler of Kashmir also said, I will remain independent. Then the government of Pakistan decided to accept the accession of the Nawab of Junagadh. We accept Junagadh as part of Pakistan. Junagadh was not contiguous with Pakistan. It was couple of 100 miles at least or more south of Karachi. There was no land link, and there was a remote sea link. It was not a realistic proposition. In any case, the people of Junagadh were not for Junagadh joining Pakistan. So the Indian government's line, spelled out by Gandhi, who was not in the government but is still alive and he was influential, by Nehru, the Prime Minister, and by Patel, the great hero today. Gandhi, Nehru, and Patel, all 3 said at that time, and they are on record, that we don't believe in rulers deciding where people should belong. The people should decide. Junagadh will go where the people want it to go. Hyderabad will go where the people want it to go. And Kashmir will go where the people want it to go. the people rose in Junagadh. The Indian Army sent its police to Junagadh. The accession to Pakistan became a paper accession. Junagadh became part of India, and the people in a referendum voted to remain with India. At that time, Patel, who has the tallest statue in the world, at that time, Patel said, and it is on record, if Mr. Jinnah takes his hand off Hyderabad, if Hyderabad joins India, he can have Kashmir. Patel, Vallabhbhai Patel, tallest statue in the world. Okay. In 1999, there was the Kargil War in the Kashmir area, where Pakistanis tried to take over the Kargil part, which is now in the Ladakh part of JKNL. It was a bold move. It was an illegal move. It was a clandestine move, but it was, in the end, it was defeated, foiled, repulsed. And then again, the world intervened, and the India-Pakistan war, short-lived war of 1999, which India was winning and India had won. The world intervened and the war stopped. But of course, by this time, both India and Pakistan had developed. Yes. Okay. So I must now mention my Punjab involvement, because I decided to study the story of Punjab. Why the killings of 1947? I wanted to understand not just what happened in the 3 or 4 years before independence and partition, but what happened in the 200 plus years before partition. Why was there this animosity on the ground that facilitated the terrible killings that took place in 1947? And in the course of this study and research, I traveled to various parts of Punjab, much of which is now Pakistan, some of which is part of India. The Indian Punjab was then divided into Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal. And we interviewed many people. Of course, I studied as many of the records as I could find. My wife and I, we did our research together. One of the things we did was to try and meet survivors of the 47 killings, and also to find out more about something that we had heard, which everybody had heard, which was this. Yes, it was a time of madness. Many people killed those on the other side, but many more people saved those who were on the other side. Many Hindus killed many Muslims. Many Hindus and Sikhs killed many Muslims. Many Muslims killed many Hindus and Sikhs. But many Hindus and Sikhs protected Muslim lives, and many Muslims protected Hindu lives and Sikh lives. And so we interviewed survivors, and we produced these interviews as part of our story, research into the story of Punjab. And I will, later on, I'll just mention one of those stories in particular. Just recently, in August 15, 2019, after the, in February or so of this year, again, there was almost a war between India and Pakistan, but it didn't take place. And then on 5th of August, the government of India announced that Kashmir's special status would end, the autonomy of Kashmir would end, and that Kashmir would become a union territory. Two union territories, one for Ladakh and one for J&K, Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu, where the Hindus are a majority, Kashmir, where the Muslims are a majority, Ladakh, where the Buddhists are a majority, but the Muslims are a large minority. So this change in Kashmir's status was effected without talking to or consulting a single Kashmiri. Not one. Not one Kashmiri was spoken to before the status of Jammu and Kashmir was changed. It was, and it continues to be, we all know about this, and about the curfews and the stoppage of the internet and the telephone lines, the arrests of a large number of people, and the inability of journalists to enter Kashmir or journalists from Kashmir to report about what's happening in Kashmir. It is an unusual and, of course, a very sad situation. And yet, on 15th of August of this year, several Indians decided that they would go to the India-Pakistan border, not in the Kashmir side, but a good deal south of it, in the Punjab area. Go to the border and express friendship to the people of Pakistan. This was started many years ago, this custom of using every Independence Day to reestablish, reaffirm friendship among the people, whatever the politician. Yes, sir. 5 minutes left? Okay. Gosh. I didn't know that I didn't know that I spoke so slowly. No. So this thing happened, and this amazing affirmation of the wish of the people on both sides of the border, the Pakistani side and the Indian side, for friendship and solidarity, whatever may happen in politics and whatever may happen between governments. So, two things I want to mention before I conclude. We talk about fake news stories. Barack Obama was not born in America. He's not an American. And a good number of Americans believe this. But do you know that a good percentage of Indians believe that Jawaharlal Nehru's family are Muslims? If you Google the name of his father, Motilal Nehru, hello? So, if you Google Motilal Nehru, you discover, oh, Motilal Nehru's ancestor was a Muslim. He worked for the Mughal government. When in Delhi, the British government was taking reprisal action against Muslims, this man left Delhi, pretended he was a Hindu, went to Allahabad. That's where Motilal Nehru was born, and Jawaharlal Nehru, his son, was born. They're actually Muslims. This is widely believed by a significant section, and this has been a sustained propaganda over the last several years. But I just mentioned this as an example of what is happening, by the way, on all sides. Now, here, let me make this very plain. I have stood for democratic rights for the minorities of India. I also stand for the rights of the minorities in Pakistan and in Bangladesh. Let there be no mistake about it. The Ahmadis, who are a Muslim sect, or at least they claim that they are Muslims, although other Muslims, Orthodox Muslims, say that they're not Muslims. Whatever they are, Muslim or not, they are a sect. They are persecuted in Pakistan. And many Hindus in Bangladesh are persecuted. And many agnostics and rationalists in Bangladesh are persecuted and killed. So the fight for human rights, for democratic rights, has to be waged in Pakistan and in India and in Bangladesh. But my last point is about a family who now live in Pakistan, in Lahore. There's a man called Salman Rashid. He is Pakistan's foremost travel writer, author of several books, historian, photographer, columnist. Many of his relatives were killed in 47 in Jalandhar, now in Indian Punjab. How many here know, who are from India, that before 47 partition, Jalandhar in eastern Punjab was a Muslim majority city? Did you know that? You are a learned scholar. That Ludhiana was a Muslim majority city. That Amritsar had 47% Muslims. Just as Lahore had a very large, not a majority, but a very large Hindu and Sikh population. Similarly, Rawalpindi and Multan had substantial Hindu and Sikh populations. So in Jalandhar, this Salman Rashid's family, many of them were killed. Young women were killed, old doctor was killed, and a servant called Idu was killed with his children. We discovered this when we were interviewing people about 47. And we discovered from Salman's mother the names of all the relatives who one by one were killed. It was a very moving experience for us to learn the names of these people. But then, what did Salman do? Salman Rashid, most of his relatives were killed in 47, decided that he must meet the killers who killed his relatives. So he made several trips to Jalandhar. And he managed to meet the son of the killer, who was dead by this time. And here are Salman's words. He, Mohinder Pratap Sehgal, son of a man who died with the blood of my family on his hands, a Hindu, and I, born into a family of devout Muslims, stood there in the bright late afternoon sunshine, looking at each other as we tried to come to grips with what had been narrated. If I had inherited grief from a family that never spoke explicitly of the loss suffered during partition, Mohinder Pratap had a legacy of remorse from a father who rued his error to the end of his days. We both needed each other to heal our wounds of partition. I had not let memory to turn grief into hatred for them across the border. Instead, it taught me to forgive and move on. Mohinder Pratap had in the same way kept the guilt of his father, hoping perhaps to someday meet someone to apologize to. Our need for the other was mutual. The Pakistanis and the Indians need each other. And my last thought is, all of you in the United States who meet people of Indian origin, Pakistani origin, Bangladesh origin, or who may themselves be of Indian, Pakistani, or Bangladesh origin, you can meet each other here the way you cannot meet there. Make use of this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gandhi. I have a lot of good questions here for you. So if anybody else wants to write a question and has not done so far, Jeanette has some cards here. Our first question is there any hope that one day Kashmir will be free?
I'm a historian, not an astrologer. stop there.
Can you give some comments on British rule, the British role in partitioning?
You know how convenient it is for the whole world to say the British did it. What a tribute to a handful of people living in a small country. That they could so manipulate things that the world would fight each other. Of course, there is a little truth in this. It suited the British to exploit divisions, ill wills, dislikes. But as Maulana Muhammad Ali famously said, when he was told again and again, divide and rule, imperial policy, divide and rule. He said, yes, there was divide and rule, but we divide and they rule. The British exploited divisions, but the divisions were made in India.
Do you think that the ideology which killed your grandfather is rising in India today? Hindu nationalism?
It is not only rising, it has risen. It has risen. And there are today some in the Indian Parliament, elected in the Indian Parliament, the latest Indian Parliament, who say that the killer of Gandhi was a better patriot than Gandhi. And although, so as is happened in many countries, the notion that equality is a great goal, that high and low belongs to the past, that ideology is now superseded by the ideology of supremacy of some. That rightful owners must claim their country back. The whites must claim America back. The Hindus must claim India back. So to that extent, the ideology of the killers of Gandhi is now accepted by dominant sections of the Indian population. I'm not saying large majority of the Indian population, by dominant sections of the Indian population.
What do you think the future of India-Pakistan relationship is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and how has Modi helped or hurt this relationship?
So, Modi met Trump in France 2 days ago. Now, the rest of the world, when it talks about the meeting of Trump with European leaders, does not refer to Trump-Modi conversations on the sidelines. Modi is not part of these 7. But the Indian media is full of what Trump said about his meeting with Modi. What did Trump say about Modi's talks with him? He said, Modi has assured me that things are completely under control. That Modi has said to me that all disputes between India and Pakistan, and by that he meant, he did not say so explicitly, but Kashmir is part of it. All disputes between India and Pakistan are purely bilateral matters, Modi told him. We don't need anyone else's help, thank you very much. We will sort this out amongst ourselves. So Modi tells Trump that Kashmir is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. But he tells the people of India, Kashmir is not a bilateral issue, it is now a purely internal Indian issue. So that is the position as far as Kashmir and Modi is concerned at the moment.
I know this is a personal question, but when your grandfather was shot and you weren't there, did that affect you in any way, and how's that influenced who you are today?
Well, maybe all that I'm doing and my talk here with you this evening is part of that impact.
Thank you. Concerning water rights in India, Pakistan, and China, what do you think is the most promising water management policy which may have the best chance of avoiding armed conflict?
I think the most effective water right policy is if we allow our tears of sympathy and sorrow to move us. And then we lead to some kind of reconciliation and understanding. That would deal also with the great water challenge for India and Pakistan.
Do you regard the film Gandhi as an accurate portrayal of your grandfather? What was your reaction to the film?
No film is literally accurate. An artist takes some liberties with facts, sometimes with sequence and chronology. There are those kinds of inaccuracies in the Attenborough film. But taken in the round, it is a wonderfully true film.
Thank you. Gandhi called Kashmir the ray of hope in 1947 when the states of India and Pakistan were burning, communal violence. What do you think is the reason Kashmir is now the quote unquote largest prison on earth, a place which has been cut off from the rest of the world for the last 23 days?
So Gandhi called Kashmir as a ray of hope. Why? Because at a time when partition had taken place, at a time when many Muslims said that Muslims and Hindus are two nations, and many Hindus said that Hindus and Muslims are two nations, whereas Gandhi was saying that Hindus and Muslims can live together in one nation. At that time, Kashmir, with its Muslim majority, with its popular leader Sheikh Abdullah saying that Kashmir will be part of India, that represented to Gandhi a very great hope. Today the picture has changed a great deal, but the matter is still in the hands of people, of human beings, of all of us in Kashmir, in Pakistan, and in India. If we demonstrate that Muslims and Hindus will live as friends, will not let past stories affect our present decisions. We will look to the future. And it is in us, in human beings, that capacity, that strength. Whether that strength will be manifested in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, God alone knows. But that hope that Gandhi expressed in those words is the hope in the wisdom, in the nobility of the human being. And I, for one, am not going to give up that hope ever.
My mother is from Bangladesh. Here in the States, I have a good Pakistani friend. I have never been to India, Bangladesh, or Pakistan. In that region, how often do friendships happen between Bengalis and Pakistanis, etc.?
I don't know whether I followed the question, sir.
Could you comment on how often friendships occur across national boundaries or ethnic boundaries?
Yes. So as I think the questioner probably is supporting the point I made, that just because Bangladeshis were Muslims and Pakistanis were Muslims, that would not ensure that they would live absolutely happily together without a common sense, mutual give and take and understanding. So there are those barriers. But we know in many cases those barriers have been overcome. yes, it's true that in recent years across the world, the idea that there should be some kind of supremacy of one section over the other, that has at the moment taken ascendancy. But 10 years ago, we were all talking about globalization. So these currents move quite rapidly. When the pendulum will be restored, I do not know. But I think we must have the faith, at least I have the faith, and I'm sure many here have the faith, that barriers of nationality or race or religion cannot destroy human empathy and human friendship.
Another Kashmir question. If Kashmiris want to be independent, why is it a bilateral issue?
Say that again.
If Kashmiris want to be independent, why is it a bilateral issue?
To some extent, it is because many in India and in Pakistan don't want Kashmiris to be independent. And India and Pakistan are very strong countries and very large countries. India is larger and stronger than Pakistan. But Pakistan also is pretty large and strong, and Pakistan also has the nuclear bomb. And if you are comparing the Kashmir Valley with India and Pakistan, Kashmir Valley is quite small in relation to either Pakistan and India. And neither Pakistan nor India, and the people of India, and this is an important point, the people of India don't want Kashmiris to be independent. Not just the government. The people of India don't want Kashmiris to be independent. Many people of Israel don't want Palestine to be independent. So this is the reality. Can this reality change? How this reality would change? These are great questions which are more for those who are below the age of 84.
How have you encouraged, I think is how have you been encouraged and facilitated by the strategy of forgiveness to being about reconciliation between two or more hostile peoples, groups, or entities?
Well, I don't know how we can encourage the process of reconciliation, putting the past behind, not forgetting the past, remembering the past, but not being influenced by the past. These are very great questions. And let me take this opportunity to say this also. With no disrespect to Pakistan or to Kashmir, India, with all its flaws and its very great flaws and sins and offenses, India, until recently, was proud of the idea that India would demonstrate a nation beyond the bloodline, a nation of equality in diversity, of mutual respect, of fraternity, of unity, somewhat like the United States, which was a nation built on, a nation with serious faults and flaws, historical flaws, which we still witnessing the impact of. But both India and the United States were and are nations where I don't know whether we can take account or not, but a great number of people in today's India, a great number of people in today's United States are determined that India and the United States will be nations of freedom, equality, and mutual respect. So once we achieve that, God willing, the people of Kashmir also may realize their dreams.
Thank you. Do you believe that peace is even a remote possibility with the current government of India? If so, how? The basic human right of speech is gone. Free speech is non-existent. The wounds are too deep, the questioner says.
In a way, the answer was contained in the previous 45 minutes of my remarks. But I would say this. There are so many people of Indian origin, Pakistani origin, Bangladeshi origin, Kashmiri origin in the United States, and Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Muslims, Kashmiri Buddhists. Those of us who live here have a better chance than people who live in India or in Pakistan or in Kashmir to promote these ideas of partnership. The ball is not in the court of the speaker you're listening to. The ball is with you, guys, here in the United States.
Who is responsible for the killing of innocent Muslim Kashmiris in Kashmir?
Bad people are responsible.
Thank you. This kind of follows up on your previous remark, but what advice do you have for those in the audience here to be peace builders?
Okay. One very important point. Peace builders who want democracy, who want equality, who don't like the kind of majoritarianism or the supremacy doctrines being preached successfully in both US and India. You are a large group. Be sure that in your own large group, you are united. Be nicer to one another within your large group. Because so often we are unhappy with others who are with us in the broad goal, but we don't like their methods. We don't like some things they say, some things they do. We dislike people if they don't agree with us on every single point. So the first step is those of us who believe in equality, mutual respect, freedom, equal rights for all, let us be truly nice and courteous to one another. That is the first step. And the next step is to see how to enlarge our circle, how to win over those who don't agree with us on the fundamental point. This is a tougher task, but it's not impossible. People rise above their prejudices. There are situations in the world when people have risen above their prejudices. And so now here, a mere historian, scholar, speaker, can't do what's needed. But a creative artist, a songwriter, a singer, a playwright, a novelist, they can do what prose writers cannot do. So I wait for the inspired poet and writer and musician who comes up with the melody, the words, the vision, the dream that will stir all of us.
Good advice, thank you. Thank you all for staying so long. We have our final question, and this is connected in some ways to what you spoke on last evening in terms of peace journalism. It says, oftentimes the first to report is the most well-read, regardless of accuracy or quality. People have a tendency to be emotionally reactive, especially to sensationalism. And what can be done to counteract this?
it's very hard when obvious truths are disbelieved and patent lies are believed. How to overcome this is certainly not easy for me to prescribe a remedy. I think one thing that each one of us needs to do is not to be swayed by the pressure of fake beliefs. Even if we appear to be drowned into small minorities, let us keep the faith that what is true and will ultimately be victorious. So let us have no sense of panic or alarm. Let every kind of horrible rumor fly about. So what? The truth remains the truth. And some people will emerge who will have the way, the ingenious way, the effective way of conveying the truth to everybody. But until that happens, we must maintain that absolute belief in the ultimate victory of truth.
Thank you, Professor Gandhi. Could you all remain for just a couple of minutes? We have a presentation of a gift to Professor Gandhi from the India Association of Kansas City. So please come forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It says, India Association of Kansas City, Dr. Rajmohan Gandhi, for your leadership and commitment to world peace. August 27, 2019, Kansas City.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
One more time, let's give Professor Gandhi a big hand. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.